Hello and welcome back to the Angler Grind podcast. I'm your host, Haley Demers. And again, this is week 2. I'm so excited to have back on the podcast Miss Hannah Borg. She's going to share the lessons and her advice of being an entrepreneur in a family business here in rural Nebraska. It's a real thing. It's not easy. And I also want to dive into community and just how she's navigated that experience moving back home. So with me here today again, let's welcome Miss Hannah Borg.
Thank you. I'm excited to have this conversation.
Awesome. So first question I have, we talked about it a little bit in the previous podcast, just navigating family and how I've experienced it here today now with your brother, and then we paused, and then your dad came in, but it's just real life. It's not always smooth, and not everyone is, it's harder, you're more authentic with your family, and you lose the filter.
Yeah, that's an understatement.
Rarely goes smooth in day to day, but will you share a little bit about how you navigate the family dynamics here since you went to college and then you came home and now you stepped into more of a leadership role? That dynamic probably changed with your dad. It probably changed with your brother and your sister. So share a little bit about how you've navigated the family business.
Yeah, how long do we have? Because I could talk about this all day, and I feel like depending on what day it is, like I have more positive things, or other days it's like, man, this is hard. Because, working in a professional setting, you naturally have to have more filters, and you just, I feel like it's different when you're working in more of a professional office versus in a family business with your family. And so I think we've gotten a lot better over the years because even though we are family, like we are still working. Mm-hmm. And so how do we figure out how to communicate? Even laughing at that because when we paused, my dad came in here, he was frustrated. Our communication is not working today all that well, but maybe tomorrow it will. And that's just kind of accepting like, okay, that moment didn't go well, but like, let's just move on to the next one and figure things out. I don't know. It's tough because I did a lot of leadership things in college. I've been in some professional settings. I kind of have a handle on what good communication looks like. And not everyone else in my family has that same experience or same perspective, or maybe they don't have the same value of communication because why do we need to be so professional sometimes? So that's something interesting to think about, like, even though I want it to be more professional, not everyone would say that. And even when we are constantly communicating, like, this is what we're going to do, this is what needs to be done, like, things change all the time. And like, this wasn't working, so I did it this way. Why are you doing, like, it's just, things are constantly evolving and changing, and plans just are hard to keep sometimes. And so just constantly, like, staying up on what everyone's doing is just tricky. As we saw in that break, my dad he came in with good intentions, but he was frustrated that something wasn't going right anyway. So I don't know. It's oftentimes my mom ends up being our HR manager, which I also think is tough because we're all going to her and she's like, this is not my problem to solve, you guys figure it out. Or my sister, who's off the farm, often she'll get 4 calls of the same story, or 4 versions of the same story, because she's the outside person. And so just being diligent of like, okay, we're all venting to the same person, like maybe we shouldn't be doing that, or she's gonna have a different perspective. And other days it's like, man, we made a plan, we executed it, that felt good, we're gonna rock and roll. And other days it's like, I can't even look at you today.
Right.
And I don't want it to be that way. Like, I think there are like, it's very cliche to talk about like bad communication or like working with families being tricky on the farm. Like, it doesn't have to be that way. And I'm sure there's a lot of other families that could show a good perspective of what it looks like. And I think we also do a better job than other people. So, there's just a very wide array of what works. And what works one day does not work the next day. So it's just every day is different. I always go back to that. Like every day looks different in terms of work, in terms of family, in terms of communication. It's different.
Yeah. Has there been, so being back 6 years, has there been something that you've brought back when, I'm thinking in terms of communication, whether that be like, okay, we have a family meeting every Friday, or, anything tactical that you've brought back that has worked really well?
I would love to say that we have a family meeting every week, and we don't. Sometimes I have a meeting with my dad or brother, and they don't realize that we're having a meeting. Um, so, like a single tactical thing, not. I something that comes to mind is like we upgraded our feeding system like year or two of me being home, because when I would do chores in the fall, when Dad was running the grain cart, like I would have to call him every day for the rations, and it was always an inconvenient time to call him, and then that was frustrating. And so I said, Dad, we got to get a digital system so that our feeding is a little bit more streamlined, and I don't have to call you and report back on what they ate and how to adjust the rations and whatnot. So we got performance beef. That's like kind of a tactical thing of like, the pain point was it was very inconvenient to call my dad every day about rations, and the solution was a digital system. In other terms, like it's also adjusting my expectations and also how I handle my own emotions, because other people in my family have maybe a shorter fuse than me, and that used to really, really frustrate me, and I would take that very personally. And so I've learned other people's emotions are not mine to solve. And that saves me a lot of headache and saves me a lot of just frustrations, because it's like, unless things don't change unless things change. And so this is always going to be the same when we're working cattle or fixing something in a high stress situation. Like there's going to be big emotions and short tempers. Can I solve that? Absolutely not. They can, they just haven't decided to, which is their choice to make, totally okay. So in those moments of high stress or high emotions, I have learned not to match those and make those personal feelings. I've learned how to just stay calm and almost maybe go internal, because that keeps me not stressed.
Right.
There's situations where sometimes having higher emotions is like, could be useful, but generally it's not that serious, and getting mad quickly does not solve the problem. And so I've learned that if I just stay calm, generally that helps out the cause more than getting mad like other people around me.
Makes me think of my own marriage. We were talking the other day and we were like, I don't know that we've ever had like a screaming fight.
Yeah, that doesn't solve anything.
Like it doesn't solve anything. Like we're both pretty calm, cool and collected. We're frustrated and we argue, but
and generally solving the problem in the moment is also not the solution.
Yes.
Yelling at each other, and of course, like, don't get me wrong, I have lost my temper or been mad or yelled things that I regret later, but I've also learned, one, I don't like that feeling, and two, that's really not going to solve the problem.
Right.
And so if I do have an issue, like letting things settle and then coming back to it will be a lot more efficient or like useful than in the moment yelling back like, well, I didn't like how you did this.
Yeah. It's like that saying they always say, don't go to bed mad. And I'm like, sometimes it would do me worse if I spoke about this right now.
Yes.
I am not emotionally okay to have this conversation.
And when you calm down, it's generally not as serious as what you thought it was. And you're like, is that a hill I'm going to die on? And I ask that myself sometimes too, because it's like some things I do get really frustrated about. I can't solve it and I can't change it. So it's like, why bring it up? Like, it's not a hill I'm going to die on. I use that phrase very often. And other things, it's like, no, I need you to know my opinion on this, because I didn't like how this went, or I don't agree with how we're doing things. And I also know like where my lane is of decision making. Some things I get to have an opinion on or help make a decision, and other things I don't have any sort of opinion that matters, or I can't make any sort of decision. So also understanding my place in a respectful way is like, okay, that's your decision to make. You're going to make that decision, not mine. I'm not going to be upset about it.
Right. Knowing your boundaries and where you lie, and what your role is on the operations, probably very important.
Yeah, absolutely. And that, I mean, that's how it is for anyone in any sort of role. Like, once you start overstepping, you know, your roles, or it just can get, excuse me, things can just get messy really quick. And so understanding when to speak up and when to stay quiet has been really useful for me, just because it's like, it's not every decision is mine to make. And so it's like, doesn't matter what I think, and I can be okay with that. Whereas, you know, 5, 6, you know, even a few years ago, I think it took me a really long time to just be at peace with how to handle my own emotions, and be okay with that, because I want to feel good about myself when I go to bed, and not be, you know, embarrassed or frustrated about how I acted. So I just have really focused on myself, and that's something I can solve, versus wanting other people to change and knowing that maybe that's not the case.
Yeah. It kind of makes, this is all making me think about like the seasons and the different things that we go through. I mentioned before, just aren't smooth, and I'm sure that's been the case here. And now that you've had some, I wouldn't say, I would say longevity compared to, you know, to some people being back on the operation, could be fresh out of college still. But what has been a really hard season that you've really had to navigate, whether that be a family issue, whether that be something on the farm? What is something that you've really had to navigate through, and how you came out of it?
I think our hardest season on the farm is chopping silage, and that starts in 2 weeks. So how do I navigate it? One, knowing that it's going to be hard, because for the first few years I didn't drive a truck, and so I wasn't in it as much. And then I've been driving a truck. My uncle runs the chopper, and then the rest of the family has trucks and packs, and so we do all of our own stuff, and then we do custom stuff as well. So what makes silage hard is there's just so many variables. There's a lot of moving parts. It just is long days. And so, and there for a while, like the chopper was breaking down. Like breakdowns just feel so heavy during silage. And, you know, other people could have way different perspectives, but I just think it's a really tough season for me. Because we're also like getting the yards ready, or trying to sneak in like getting yards ready, and then we have wean calves, and so we're trying to get those keeping, you know, there's just a lot of things to juggle, and so knowing that it's going to be tough, like, okay, what am I going to do to prepare for the tough season? Well, something that is really important to me is eating good food, and so prepping food that has made it easier in those harder seasons, because I come home and I have a meal prepped. You know, do I have the right water bottle that fits into the cup, and so it's not like rolling away from me? Like such small things. Like, do I have a headset that? Do I have the right charger? Like, do I have all the stuff that I need? Do I have enough caffeine? Like all those little things. It sounds so little, but it's like, how can I set my day up for success, knowing that it's going to be a really long, high emotional one? Because part of the reason is, like, it's taking me a while to get comfortable driving a truck. That didn't come naturally for me. And so that's why it was stressful for me, because driving a truck all day long just is scary sometimes. And I had a truck accident a couple years ago, so then that made it even more scary. So anyways, I could just go on and on. That's just a really tough season, and so just breaking it down, why is this tough? What can I do to control things, and how can I set myself up for success? Other seasons that are tough, like calving season can be tough. There's a lot of big emotions there, trying to, my brother carries a lot of the weight of calving season, and so supporting him where I can, like, you know, he does night shift, and so then I'll do chores or take the morning shift, and then he comes back in the afternoon, and we'll, you know, do things together. Anyways, just like figuring out what that flow is, and the more that we do it, the more we figure out that flow and the more that we can prepare for those harder seasons. Also, as we go, we make equipment upgrades and just little things to tweak things to make it just better. And we're, like I mentioned, we process calves or process the feedlot animals all week. We got a new scale this week, and so that improves our system a little bit because we can sort off the really big ones or sort off the really small ones. So it's just like little things over time has just made things easier. And so constantly checking in, like, what do we need? What can we improve on? Is just something that we're always doing so that even in those hard seasons, we're set up for success.